Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Yana Johnson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Alastair Cooper. We warmly welcome the family of Lance Corporal James Stanley Varley Stark, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they love, and here we guard their record, which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal James Stanley Varley Stark. James Stark, known as Stanley, was born in 1896 to William and Sarah Stark of the Sydney suburb of Burwood. After attending the Petersham Superior Public School, he went on to work as a clerk. He was also an active member of the Methodist Church and a long-time member of the Sunday School at the church at Croydon. Stanley enjoyed the outdoors, particularly camping, and what his friend described as all manly athletic exercises. Stanley Stark was known generally as a cheerful, devout, earnest, genial young man with a pleasant smile and a kindly word for all. Stark enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in June 1915. He was posted to the 18th Battalion and, after a period of training in Australia for active service overseas on board the troop ship Runic in August 1915. Stark arrived on Gallipoli late in the campaign, not long after the 18th Battalion suffered considerable casualties at the attack on Hill 60. He proved an able soldier, serving as a temporary corporal. In mid-October 1915, he was wounded and had to be evacuated to Egypt to recover in hospital, losing his temporary rank in the process. After 2 months, he was discharged to light duties, returning to his battalion for active service in the new year after the evacuation from Gallipoli. The 18th Battalion arrived in France to fight on the Western Front in March 1916, the same month that Stanley Stark's older brother, Marlon, enlisted in the AIF in Australia. In July, Stanley Stark was promoted to Lance Corporal, and a few weeks later, the 18th Battalion became involved in its first major action at the village of Pozières. In early August 1916, the battalion was holding the front line near the Albert-Bapaume road under almost constant shell fire. On the 15th of August, the 18th Battalion's war diary records that their position was shelled furiously and continuously. Nevertheless, the men were pressed on to consolidate their position, working vigorously and successfully to repair damaged walls and deepen trenches. Lance Corporal Stanley Stark was one of many men who did not make it out of the front line. He was initially thought to have been evacuated to England with shell shock, but later investigations revealed that he had been killed in the heavy artillery fire and buried in the front line where he fell. In November 1916, a memorial service was held in Stark's honour in his home church in Croydon. During the service, the minister said that Stanley Stark loved his church. He had gone forth strong in faith, knowing the personal risk he undertook, but with a brave determination to make whatever sacrifice, even life itself, if necessary, in the cause of righteousness. Stark's body was recovered from the battlefield, and today he lies in the Pozières British Cemetery. His father chose a Bible reference for his epitaph, Philippians chapter 1, verse 3. The same verse read at Stark's memorial service. The verse reads, "I thank my God upon every remembrance of you." Stanley Stark was 20 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal James Stanley Varley Stark, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial. Good evening.